Hey everybody, this is Steve. Just a quick pre-winter break message. I just wanted to pass along about stuff going on in the class right now. First off, I just want to apologize for being like horrifically behind on commenting on your first project. So here's the deal. I like other faculty. I wear a lot of different hats. So one of the literally, and one of the hats that I wear right now is I'm the director, the interim director of the first year writing program, and I will spare you the details, but basically, I had to spend a bunch of time this last week interviewing new graduate assistants who will be teaching the program next year, and I just completely this fell off my calendar in terms of like planning for it, planning ahead or whatever, and so I really spent the better part of the entire week in interviews when I really should have been commenting on your essays and doing some other things too. Believe me, this is the only thing I'm behind on. So I apologize again for that. My hope is that I will comment on them some of the time over break, although I'll be doing some traveling, some vacation kinds of stuff. But with any luck, I'm knocking on my wooden desk here, that with any luck, everyone will have comments from me on their projects by the about this time next week. One thing you might want to keep in mind, I've thought about this in terms while I was reading them, is you're going to have a chance to revise one of the first three projects. This project, the style invention, the repositioning of style project, or the third project, which I'll mention in a second, which has to do with web genres. So one thing I was thinking about while reading some of these is the ways in which Strunk and White's comments on writing and style might make you rethink how you would redo parts of that first essay. So, just something to kind of like contemplate. The second thing is I wanted to talk real briefly about the some of the examples for the style remake project, and I think that folks get the general idea of where we're going there. I just want to mention three basic things. The first thing is that you'll notice that all those style remakes, they don't make new rules. What they do is they present new rules or they present rules from Strunk and White with new language and new examples. So you should do something like that too. Although you shouldn't just include rules from Strunk and White, you should include rules from Williams too, because Williams does offer some rules that I think are worthy of some of the examples and parody of them and things like that. So that's what you want to use as a sort of basic structuring device for doing that. Along those lines, let me also mention that easily the hardest part of this assignment is actually coming up with the examples. And I know that that's something that people probably aren't necessarily concentrating on quite yet in terms of like, how that will work. But I'm here to tell you that it can be really hard to come up with a really good example of don't use the passive voice or do use the passive voice under these circumstances. That number one is actually from whatever remake style you're working with, and number two is actually a good example, and in some cases a correct example. I've seen a number of examples of these projects where people present rules that are actually kind of wrong. So spend some time with that. That's a big part of that sort of project. And then the third thing is that don't forget, another part of this project is trying to find visual elements that are not that are out there in the public domain through Creative Commons or other sort of public domains kinds of things. The easiest way to do that, of course, is you can make your own examples, own images. But if you're not going to do that, just make sure that you're borrowing images that are copyright friendly, as it were. Okay, so a draft of that is going to be due on the Monday after break. Like the first project, it'll present it as a Google Doc, and so you'll want to include the images and the Google Docs within the Google Doc itself. There's only so much we can do with design elements in terms of Google Docs, but you do want to try to make it look as good and as professional and real as possible based on how you handle how you can format things in the Google Documents itself. Okay. The third thing I wanted to mention real quick is that sometime, and some of you started to do this, but sometime in the next week or so, give or take, I want you to be sure to email me about the participation grade for the first half of the semester. Now, email me directly at skrause@emich.edu. Don't email through the Canvas system because it's just kind of a pain in the butt for me to sort of sort through. So email me directly and just simply tell me what grade you think that you deserve for your participation in the discussion so far and your participation in the peer review so far. That's all we're talking about. Two things I'll mention about this real quick. The first thing is that in case you're wondering why is he doing this, the main reason I try to do this, and I do this in courses at pretty much all levels, is I want you to be self-reflective and self-accountable for this portion of the grade. Because, grades are not something that I give out like gifts. Grades are something that I assign based on work that people do or don't do. And I want you to be self-aware and accountable for the things that you've done. And one easy way to reflect on that is through participation. Okay. The way that it usually, and one of the things I mentioned about in terms of the way that the grade, well, I'll say this: the way that it usually works is you send me an email saying I think I should deserve this grade and this is why, and then I'll respond to you. My experience has been that most students are fairly accurate in their own descriptions about their participation grades, and this is especially true for students and juniors and seniors and graduate students. But again, I'll sort of respond to that and give you my thoughts. And then then I'll arrive at a grade and then I'll assign it. The one thing I'll mention about participation that I think is important if you haven't heard this before is if you want to get an A in participation, what you really need to do is do more than just post one comment of your thoughts and then not really participate in the rest of the discussion. Okay, the whole point of these discussion forums on Canvas is for an interaction. Right. So for example, my way of thinking about it in terms of the participation grade is that besides demonstrating that you did participate fully in the peer review process, I think it really takes what you need to do to get an A for participation is to demonstrate you're consistently posting an initial comment in the discussions, and then you're responding to comments that other people have made, which to me suggests, again, engaging in a discussion, a dialogue. If you've missed a bunch of discussions, if you aren't really doing that, you're going to get less than an A, and that's just pretty much all there is to it. And that's probably something you want to think about as you try to determine your own participation grade. Okay, so do that sometime within. I mean, it's really due by the end of the day today, but practically speaking, I'm not going to get to this until sometime during winter break. So do this, in the next few days or over winter break or something like that. Okay. The last thing is that one of the things I need to do over winter break, which is going to make commenting and essays a little more complicated, is I need to get caught up on planning for the course, because if you look at the syllabus, there is a planned last assignment, but there's not really a completely planned third assignment, and we're going to begin talking about that after break. I have some pretty good ideas about what that's going to be, but that's going to include me developing some new blog entry assignments. It's going to include some reading assignments and things like that. So stay tuned for the details of that after break. The thing that you need to concentrate on right now, though, frankly, is finishing your style remake and getting ready for the peer review process for that, which will start on that Monday. One last thing that I'll mention for the time being here, too, is the 10th blog post entry was due, I believe, on the end of the day on Wednesday. Well, actually, it's due on Wednesday. I need to get caught up on those, so it's one of those things where if you're a little bit behind, you want to get caught up, this is a good chance you can probably do that. But we're due that Wednesday, and that will end the first part of the blog post assignments. Remember that the blog posts are worth the equivalent of essentially of an essay assignment for the class, which is to say that they're worth, I could double checking here, 150 points. So what I'll do is I'll read through your blog post for the first half of the semester, and I'll make a very brief comment on Canvas, and I'll assign a grade based on 70 and assign you half of the 150, which is 75 points, up to 75 points. The main key thing, as I've said all along about those, is make sure that you are finishing those blog posts and make sure that they demonstrate that you're engaging in the reading and discussion in a thoughtful and interesting way. I think that's it for now. Hopefully some of you will have some fun over break. I'm planning on having some fun over break, and hopefully some of you will get some work done over break too. I'm planning on getting some work done over break too. Okay, I'll see you online.